I'd like to start off by just playing a few examples from the book. I was telling you about part one. The first 8 lessons are about different kinds of techniques that you need to know if you're going to play. Well, a lot of piano players wonder what it's like to play bass. Well, you don't have to wonder, because there's a way you can do it without too much trouble. On lesson 5, I covered keyboard bass, which a lot of piano players use, sometimes on gigs when there's no bass players in the real world. It does happen. So if you had a situation like that and you had to play bass, then it'd be great to know how. And if you learned how to do it, you never needed to know how, that's great too, because then you'd know a little bit more about what bass players do and what they're supposed to be doing and what a good bass player always does. And you'd know a little bit more about what to listen for when you play with bass players. So let's have a little look at something from lesson 5, a couple of phrases. There's a couple different ways to approach playing a bass line from different directions. Like for instance, we can approach different chords from above or from below. So if I approached, for instance, in this particular example, I approached the chords on beat 3 in the bar from above, from a note above that chord. For instance, we start off with C, and so on, like that. You'll notice the note before the chord approaches the next chord by a half step. Then we approach the next chord, after that by a half step. The next chord by a half step, by a half step, and so on, right? So I give you a cycle of 3 bars here. Then you keep playing dominant 7th chords in the right hand, while you play the left hand, you play the bass line. Then there's other ways of doing it. You can approach that chord from below the root of the chord, for instance, like this. Something like that. So instead of going, you're going, etc., right? That's another way of doing it. There are many different ways you can actually construct a line, but we want the notes in these particular examples to either be a half step above the chord or just below the chord, right before we play the chord. And you'll see how it all works out in the example. And you play the exercises, and then you get the idea what it feels like to keep time in the left hand while you play the chords in the right hand, completing your accompaniment. There's some different examples that you have here, including a writing assignment, and then at the end of the lesson, an assignment where you play an entire 12-bar chorus of blues with the chords in the right hand, playing a syncopated rhythmic feeling, along with the quarter notes in the left hand. It sounds a little bit like this. Like that. And you practice that in different keys, and then you can create little changes, little ways of doing it differently, changing the chords up a little bit maybe. Essential techniques of jazz and contemporary piano. Thanks.